Hello, my name is Emma and I'm a counsellor. This recording is about dealing with financial difficulties. So I recommend, if you've got 10-15 minutes to listen along, grab a pen and a bit of paper, get yourself comfy, get ready to take some notes, and if you hear something that you think, that sounds like it might help me, go ahead and make a note of it and you can come back to it later on. So, big breath, dealing with financial difficulties. Financial difficulties have always been around, but I guess more so now than ever. We're all feeling that extra squeeze. We're all really aware that things have rocketed in price. Not just things we want to buy, commitments that we've already got, interest repayments on things, mortgages, the price of things that we need to buy at the shops. We've also just had Christmas. January is the longest month in the world ever when you're waiting for payday. So a lot of us are still feeling that residual hangover, financial hangover from Christmas as well. And I think the thing with financial problems is it's almost like an insidious, silent, creeping stress. We get so used to it because it's omnipresent every day. The price of things, the bank balance we've got, it's always around. So I guess the stress varies in levels, but it's ever present. So we just kind of accept it, and that can mean that we take our eye off the ball with stress, that we don't recognise when it's getting bad, that we don't recognise when we need to do something about it. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of financial difficulties is doing a self-care audit. You can find one of these online. I think the website's called Therapist Aid, but there'll be lots of versions online. Just Google self-care audit and you'll find a 2 or 3 page document that you can do some sort of tick list with. This is a really good way to highlight any blind spots that you've got, because self-care is crucial, because that is the part that throws a little bucket of water on the fire of stress. So whilst I wish I could wave a magic wand, and I wish you could wave a magic wand rather and sort financial stress out, it might be the long haul. So really one of the first things you can do is check in with your self-care. Do a self-care audit. Look at your stress levels, identify where there are gaps by using the tool, the self-care audit, which I've mentioned. Also, it's going to be really important to you to keep active, to keep an eye on things like alcohol, which we can so easily turn to when we're stressed. Keep your daily routine as robust as possible, because during times of any difficulty, that's one of the first things that we kind of give up on. Not give up on, but we kind of move away from. We don't prioritise it. But actually routine is really stable and healthy for us, especially when you've got robust, healthy daily routines. Like one of mine is I exercise with my sister every morning for an hour, Monday to Friday, never on a weekend. And I really start to feel rubbish if I don't invest in that every single day. Balanced eating, I know it's no fun, right? But particularly in times of stress, that's when we need it more than ever. So, yeah, it seems a bit strange, doesn't it? Thinking about financial difficulties, but coming right in there with a stress audit and a self-care audit. Surely that's not really the problem, but it is. And this is something that you can do straight away, way before you ring the National Debt Advice Line or whatever it's called. Start with you, because that's where the easy win is. That's where you can get some progress and some traction straight away. Because let's not kid ourselves, financial difficulties bring about a lot of stress. So please look for that self-care audit. I guess the next big thing on the to-do list is really to face the problem. And I don't mean that to be patronising, because it can be scary. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like, oh my God, where do I even start with this? So get a pen and a bit of paper and get some help if you need to, if you're not a logical thinker. Or maybe that fear or anxiety around the situation is making it difficult for you to get things on paper. Ask a trusted friend a trusted colleague, somebody like that, just to help you write down the parts of the problem so you can start to get it in order. I don't know what your personal situation is. Are you looking for a job? Are you really struggling under the weight of debt at the minute? Is it the increasing costs of things that are causing a problem more than unemployment or any existing debt? Or it could be a variation of all of those things. But in facing the problem, I guess we've got to identify the problem. What is the problem? Let's get it on paper. Let's get things in order. And then once we know what the problem is and we get specific about it, we can get specific about the help that we need. So let's take, for example, debt, if that's one of the problems or the problem. Think broadly, first of all. Nationally, now I don't know which country you're in because I'm recording this in the UK, but you could be from anywhere around the world. Think nationally. What government-backed schemes are there? What national help is there? So I would be looking for keywords like national debt help or something like that, no matter which country you're in. So start nationally and then whittle it down. Use your geographic area. Look for local support. And that is simply a case of using the same keywords, debt support, but with your location in front. Some variation of that. Also within local, there's a lot of information on Facebook. A lot of events and things are posted on there. And I know certainly local to me, every week or every other week, there's a lovely food initiative running where you can fill 2 or 3 bags with food and pay what you feel. Now that is advertised on Facebook. So go into, whether it's, I don't know if Instagram or any other platforms do this sort of thing. I'm literally not on commission for Facebook. It's just that I like it and I use it, so I know it. But yeah, get local that way. Put your geographical area into Facebook events and use some search words. And while we're on the subject of food banks and food initiatives, I guess, it doesn't feel like all that long ago there was a lot of stigma about it, but now it's becoming that more and more people need to access this. If you've got feelings of guilt or shame or embarrassment around that, I think there's really something about sharing those feelings with someone, asking a colleague at work or a peer, or if you're studying or whatever your situation is, just say, how are you finding things at the minute? Are you managing all right? And kind of put the ball in their court. And then they might say, oh God, it's terrible. It's just this and that. And you can go, oh yeah, I know. And then bring yourself into it. Because I think financial difficulties can be a really secretive thing. And that just adds to the level of shame and embarrassment and guilt. But I guess we can put the news on at the moment and realise that so many more people are affected. In a way, it is adding light to the darkness of financial debt, that we can all relate to it at the moment. So there probably, in a lot of ways, has never been a more progressive time in dealing with the stigma, if that makes sense. So face the problem, get it broken down. What are the problems? Now, how do I look for more information? And bearing in mind that these organisations that you're going to go to, they are designed specifically to help you with that problem. Is it advice you need about increasing costs? Is it advice you need about finding a job and balancing childcare and this, that, and the other? The minute you find a specialist organisation, they're your best buddy. They are prepared for you. They know what you need to know. But you have to know what the problem is first. So face the problem, get specific, then look for your help. Now, this one kind of goes back to stress and the self-care, because one of the things that will be your foundation during the time that you're dealing with these financial difficulties is your own resilience. So resilience is the rubber band that gets pulled and stretched and then pings back into shape. And you've really got to pull it and put pressure on it before it will eventually snap. But in most normal pressure situations, it'll stretch, it'll bend, it'll snap back. And as people, that's what we're really aiming for. We can never guarantee a stress-free life. Gosh, I wish we could, but we can't. So, we want an acceptable amount of stretch in us. And we do that by working on resilience. Now, the great news is, we are not born with resilience. It's a learned skill. So at any point in your life, you can really brush up on what it takes to be resilient. Now, I do a lot of resilience work with clients, and I get them to think about it like a brick wall, and each brick is a separate component to resilience. So it's not one thing. You kind of get a lot of bang for your buck here, which feels great when you're working on resilience. So things like, bizarrely, staying hydrated. What an easy win is that? Staying hydrated with water is a brick in the resilience wall. Getting out in nature, getting sunlight, having a healthy diet, doing something with mindfulness. Oh, I know, she said the word mindfulness. But do you know what? I do my mindfulness while I'm washing the dishes, and I feel the bubbles and it smells lemony. And for 30 seconds, I'm not stressing about money, or I'm not stressing about clients or my car MOT or whatever it is. So mindfulness can be accessible and doable. And you can make it really brief and short. We don't have to be like Gandhi or, cross-legged in some weird pretzel position on the floor for hours on end. Grab little pockets of doable mindfulness, and it just switches off the worry or the spin cycle in your brain. And even if you only get that for 30 seconds at a time, it adds to that brick of resilience in your resilience brick wall. Also, support, talking to other people. I mentioned just before about colleagues and peers and neighbours and friends and saying, oh, how are you managing, and putting the ball in their court. Social support is a huge brick in your resilience wall. Telling your story is another brick. I think there's a quote somewhere that says, shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. Try saying that before you've had a cup of coffee. But it's really true that when you can tell your story and you can be in that beautifully vulnerable place, it adds to your resilience. It adds to your stretch in your band. It adds to the amount of coping you can do when life puts pressure on you. The other thing I would say is, and this is going to sound, and I don't mean this to sound minimising at all, make time for fun, because adulting and financial things are hard work. They're very serious topics, and we've all got our inner child, and we've all got our inner teenager, and we all need to this isn't funny. That's the thing, isn't it? That financial stress and pressure is not funny. But if you don't find an outlet somewhere, life becomes too serious and too painful. So do something that is making some specific time for fun as many times a week as you can fit it in. Things that I used to do, I was so lucky. I lived on a beach that was famous for sea glass, like award-winning sea glass. Like, is there even such a thing as an award? There isn't, but if there was, it would be it. And it was in Seaham in County Durham, if you want to look it up. And I can't tell you how many hours I spent totally free in the sunshine, roaming around, finding this amazing multicoloured decades-old glass. It was like the nature's best free treasure hunt. And I'd take a flask of coffee, I'd maybe take a sandwich or some fruit. I'd literally have the best, most fun, exciting day out ever, totally free. So, there are things that you can do. You must still have fun and relaxation and positivity and hope. It's absolutely critical now more than ever. The other thing I want you to have a think about, if it's applicable to you, is to be honest with children in a really super age-appropriate way, to normalise it, to reduce the fear, to say things like, gosh, you must have heard about it on the news or at school, or however, I don't know how old your kids are, but kind of be honest, and then they understand where you're coming from, which also reduces your stress. And children are so creative and so hopeful and so positive naturally. They haven't had as much life as we've had, and they don't know about all these things yet. So get the kids involved. Who can think of a brilliant idea of activities, cheap or totally free a day? You will literally have bragging rights in the family for the whole day. Get them involved. It's another topic altogether, but teaching our children about finances from as young an age as possible, as is appropriate, is a good thing. You're actually helping them, and you're also helping yourself to reduce your stress. Now, I know, I guess, depending on your situation and how big it feels, small steps might be like, oh, what's the point? It's a drop in the ocean. But each small step is a little win. It's, is it Lao Tzu? I can never say it. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Yes, I know it's corny and cheesy as, but it is so true. Praise yourself for every single little step that you're doing. I was also going to mention, and I touched on it before, become aware of your stress habits, as these often cost more money. The positive, healthy stuff is either ridiculously cheap or sometimes even free. Drinking, smoking, gambling, shopping, things like that, overeating, splurging on things that you can't afford, whatever your stress habits are. Yes, it can feel like a temporary high and a temporary fix, and chemically that's what you're getting. But it's actually adding to the problem as well as only being a very, very temporary high or a boost. And it takes no time at all to get that natural high, that natural boost of doing something outside, something as a family, something as simple as walking in the sunshine. So I hope this on some level has been useful. Do your research, get organised, face the problem. But please, 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 first of all, check in with your stress levels. Do that self-care audit and just look for easy wins. Can I drink that extra glass of water? Yes, it is not going to write off thousands of pounds worth of debt, but you're going to feel better in this moment. And one of the things that I love to think, let me see if I can word it right, is what is the smallest action or step I can take today for a better tomorrow? And if it's okay, I'll leave it there. I'll be thinking about you. Thanks for listening. Bye.